This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Tim Serber.
Well, thank you, Charlie, and welcome back to the Good Neighbors Podcast, Morgan County. I'm your host, Tim Serber, and coming to you right here in Morgan County, Indiana. And today we have a great guest, someone who took a leap of faith, put pen to paper, and turned a passion into a published work. She's an indie author, and we'll go over what that is, writing Christian fiction, mystery, and suspense. And she's going to help, and she is also helping others self-publish, find their footing. So please welcome Jessica Mangus. How you doing, Jessica?
I'm wonderful. How are you today?
I'm doing great. And you have such an interesting story. It's like, I can't write worth a hoot. My wife's very good at it. Matter of fact, she did the Martinsville Neighbors for the first 4 years we had the magazine. So she's used to it, but I'm not. I'm not a wordsmith. I'm a word don't know anything. So I'm anxious to talk with you. So let's start at the beginning. What was the moment you decided we're actually going to write a publish a book?
I've always liked telling stories, and I've always wanted to write a book. And for years, I thought, oh, yeah, I'll get to it. And I just never put, like you said, pen to paper and actually got it done. So a few years ago, I had a decision to either stay with a company that I loved and take a different position because they were getting rid of my position, or take a severance package and start writing. And I took that leap of faith and was like, here's my time to shine. I'm going to start writing.
Nice. And how did that go? I mean, was it rough at first? Did it all seem to come together? So, in your head and everything you're doing, saying, yeah, this was the right decision?
Yeah, I think everything started coming together the minute I started to make the actual decision to sit down and write. I had stories in my head, so it wasn't like for lack of a story. So once I just started sitting down and doing it, it just all came together really easy.
Well, in Christian fiction, mystery and suspension, that's really a specific blend. How did you land on that combination, and what draws you personally to those themes?
Yeah, I've always loved reading different action and suspense and mysteries and thrillers and Agatha Christie and all these great authors, and I wanted to combine it with Christian fiction because I wanted people to get that suspenseful and mystery story combined with some truths that they could take away and apply to their life in a biblical way.
So, well, we'll get to that. So, your faith, is that a big play into your books?
Absolutely. I feel like this is more of a calling than just a hobby. So it's definitely a way for me to communicate to others that I would never be able to have the opportunity to communicate with.
Nice. Now, your first book, Scott Killian and The Letter, that was released in July of 2024, I believe.
Yes.
Tell us about it. Who is Scott, and what can readers expect?
Yeah, Scott is an 18-year-old from Franklin, Indiana, and he kind of never really felt like he amounted to anything, and he was kind of lost in his own world, and everything kind of happened all at once in this mystery where he finds a letter from his mom who had been disappeared for 3.5 years. So he traverses a world during the end time. So it's dystopian. It takes place during the tribulation, and he kind of finds his own footing, his own faith, but unravels a whole lot of mystery in between.
And are there any real parts that help create that story?
So it's all based upon fiction, but it's based upon a lot of people's interpretation of things that will be happening throughout, like AI, computers, things like that. People's like fears almost as far as like what AI is capable of doing. So there's a lot of things. I don't want to give away too much, but there's a lot of mystery that is involved in a lot of people's speculations.
Nice. Now, writing a book is one thing. Finishing it and putting it out into the world, that's definitely another. What was the hardest part of the process as you finished your first time author?
So I didn't know what I was doing when I first started. So that part was hard. And I thought I did some research, but the research out there is very conflicting. So that you look up one thing and it'll give you a totally different answer the next time you look it up on a different platform. So, Google is your friend sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't have all the answers. So I learned a lot as I went. So after I published, I decided that, okay, this is probably not the best way to do it. So then I created a new cover for my book and I republished, came out with a second edition with all the new things that I've learned and put it out there again. And it's going a lot better now that I have a lot more information in my lap.
Yeah. And you chose the indie publishing route rather than the traditional, I guess, publishing way. And so walk us through that decision. What made self-publishing the right path for you?
Yeah, absolutely. The traditional publishers, they want you to already have like an established community. They want followers. They want you to have a newsletter and already have at least so many followers. They want you to have social media platforms with so many followers. They want you to be established in your writing and be already a little bit prolific. So if somebody who wants to start out writing, they're going to have to do all that legwork ahead of time. And then once they establish all that, and then they turn it over to a traditional publisher, that traditional publisher is going to take a huge percent of the profit. So any publisher's going to have to already do that legwork anyway. You might as well keep the profits for yourself because you already did all the work to get there, to get all those followers, to get all those people to appreciate your writing. So why not just kind of do it yourself at that point? The only thing that I see that they can do is maybe get you into more bookstores. But once you're selling books and you're already into some bookstores, it gets easier to do it on your own than to go the traditional route.
Yeah. Yeah. And beyond your writing, you actually started, if I remember right, a publishing company to help other self-publishers. So tell us about that. What gap are you trying to fill, and really, who are your clients or your people that you're trying to help?
Yeah, I'm trying to help other Christian authors, not just Christian fiction, but Christian nonfiction as well, because there's so many out there that are just like me, where you have a great story or you have a great message and you want to get it out there, but you have no idea where to start. So, there's literary agents that can help, but what I'm trying to do is help you do the self-publishing route. So I'll answer your questions as far as like, how do you find an editor? How do you find a publishing platform that suits your book? And how do you get your book formatted so you can do that? How do you take those steps so that you can market your book to the right demographic? Um, and basically just help you along the way and give you all the answers that I wish I had when I first started.
Yeah, yeah. I tell you, and that takes a big leap of doing it and finding. Like I said, writing a book I think is amazing that people can do that. But there's so many stories. I think a lot of people have a manuscript in their mind that if they had a way to publish it and felt comfortable doing it, they would. I love hearing about people's stories. So for someone sitting out there right now who has a manuscript, sitting in the drawer in their head, what's the first thing you tell them?
So there's three basic steps as far as getting your book done. And the first one I tell people is just to create it, get it down on paper. It doesn't have to be good to start. Your rough draft is never going to be good, and starting it is the hardest part because people spend years and years thinking, "Oh man, I really like to write a book," but they don't actually start writing that book. So if you can just start, that is the hardest hurdle to get over. And then once you start and create that book, it's going to be rough. So the next thing is to just fill it in and make it make sense. You got to, fill in all the parts that you kind of missed along the way. You're going to do some rewrites and things like that. So you're going to create the book, make it make sense, and then you're going to go back and make it good. And you're going to fix your sentences and fix your prose and make everything sound beautiful, so to speak. So Those basic 3 steps. So if you can get to the first one, get that first hurdle where you're just getting it down, that's the biggest one.
Yeah, I would think it is. And then once you get into it, it just starts flowing, I assume. Uh,
Yes.
and then, you see all these TV shows with all these writers with blocks, they just can't seem to write anything. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think the biggest part of the blocks is the transitions. So you know how your book is going to start, you know things that are going to happen in the middle, and you know how it ends, but you don't know exactly how to transition from point A to point B. So you just kind of sit there and stare at your computer and hope that it just comes to you, and like a miraculous, like the light bulb turns on and it's just there. So sometimes it happens at 3 in the morning when I'm trying to sleep, and then it like, oh, it just comes to me. And I'm like, okay, so do I write this down, or do I think I can remember by the time I wake up in the morning? And oftentimes I do not remember. So I have to have a notebook near my bedstand so that I can write those down.
Yeah, I understand that. And you're getting ready to release a second book, if I'm correct, called The
Yes.
Rebellion of the Watcher. So can you give us a little tease on it? How does it connect to your first book, or is it something entirely new?
I guess it connects in the sense that it's the beginning, and my first book is dystopian, so it's kind of like the end, and this one takes place um, many, many years ago, prior to the flood. So it is like a pre everything type of book. So it's a different world than we know. There's going to be dragons and giants, and it kind of has like that fantasy type feel to it. So it is based on scripture, but it's also based on other historical documents like the Book of Enoch and things like that that are not necessarily scripture, but are kind of fun to read and create this whole new world. It's great for world building and things like that. So it is a fun, exciting book, and it's biblical fantasy type series.
So that's interesting. How did you come up with the idea of doing biblical fantasy? To me, that just seems like a really odd way to put the Bible, right? So how did you come up with that?
That is how my brain works. I tend to make everything into a fantasy. So I,
Mhm.
I tend to be driving down the road, usually when I'm driving, and I just kind of zone out. Don't tell the local Morgan County police. I kind of zone out, and I just have fantasies going on in my head all the time. So yeah, why not put that to pen to paper and get other people involved in those stories and have fun with it as well.
Yeah. Well, your work is rooted in Christian values, and how do you deliver? How do you balance delivering a gripping story, the suspense of mystery, with the faith element? Where does one end and the other begin for you?
Yeah, I think it's easy to tie in things that make sense to you that you can relate to. So every story kind of has a basic meaning behind it, whether it's a meaning of forgiveness or redemption or love. And those things tie in with the Bible so well, and just showing you that forgiveness can look a certain way. It doesn't have to look a way that you think it has to be, but based on what it looks like from a Bible perspective or a biblical perspective. What does forgiveness look like? What does redemption look like? What does love look like? What does Christ's love look like? So we might not understand Christ's love in that way unless you're reading stories or you are reading the Bible. And some people may never read the Bible, but they might read a fun book that has mystery and thrills and things like that, and they can learn what Christ's love is through fun stories. So that is what I try to do.
Now, do you have a whole series in your head for these books to connect with each other?
Yeah, so I have not written a book two for Scott Killian, although I've had so many people ask me when is book two coming out. But I really wanted to get the Rebellion series out first because that whole series is in my head, and I only had the story for Scott Killian in the letter in my head without the series. So I'm trying to get this series out first, and we'll see if I ever get back to a book two for Scott Killian. But I definitely have a series for the Rebellion, and I can't wait. I'm already writing book two. Called Rebellion of the Giants. And I'm really excited. I've got 5 chapters of that one done already, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
exciting to do.
Yeah, I mean, that just has to be interesting to see your work just constantly come together and then to see it in, done format, book printed and everything. I
Yeah,
think that's
it's
kind of
exciting. Yes.
cool. Yeah, I bet it is. So, one last thing, where can people find your books, connect with you, and learn more about your publishing services?
Yes, I'm on just about every platform. So Amazon, I'm on Kindle Unlimited, Barnes and Noble, Walmart.com. You can find my book just about anywhere if you search for it. And I have a website, Jessica Mangus author, GoDaddy, and you can find links to my books there as well. And I'm also on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and all those fun places, just under Jessica Mangus author. So you can find me just about anywhere.
And you've done book signings here in Martinsville, right?
Yeah, I'm actually, excuse me, working with some local businesses to do book signings like at the Chunky Monkey this summer, and I'm working with schools. Um, sorry, I got something in my throat. Going into schools and talking to the students about writing and the writing process. So I'm going to be starting to doing tours doing that in this fall too.
Nice. Well, Jessica, I have totally enjoyed talking with you. And to remind everybody, on her books, go out there, read them. You got Scott Killian and the Letter, and then you have the Rebellion of the Watcher.
Yes.
And that one's going to be coming out soon, right? Or is it already out?
Yeah, Rebellion of the Watchers comes out this June.
All right, June. So I guess you'll have some book signings in there. We'll find you probably in Martinsville and other places. So again, thank you for joining us, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
All righty. I tell you, this has been fun. I might even decide to go writing a book now.
Yeah, there you go.
You have a great one.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmorgancounty.com. That's gnpmorgancounty.com or call 317-743-2058.